Well, folks, it's time for another custom card review, and this one's all about reviving old keywords, taking a look at things like overkill or echo or adapt, and seeing what they might look like in the modern era of Hearthstone. This video is sponsored by Keeps, which we'll talk about a little later, but for now, let's take a look at our first card here. It's Chief Ukor's Sandscalp from Kogeti, a warrior legendary, 3-mana 3/3 with Rush, and a combination of overkill and honorable kill, depending upon the kind of kill that you take. This minion is going to scale up in a different way, either becoming more aggressive through some attack or gaining a bunch of extra health through honorable kill. I think, adding to its survivability off honorable kill here is probably the desired outcome a majority of the time. So in some ways, this minion's similar to something like Rokara, 3-drop rush that scales, but this one's more about building into itself as opposed to supporting other minions on board. And I think that's cool. It creates some real dilemmas for both the player and the person playing against it, like timing it well. Do I want to go for overkill and gain attack? Do I want to just maximize health totals to wait for the right moment? And then playing into this, it's like, okay, I'll give them some overkill. That's no big deal. Whatever. If they're killing minions, I'll just deal with this next turn or whatever. Or alternatively, like, man, I don't want to give them a good, clean, honorable kill. I can't quite deal with that thing if it has, 5 health or whatever. So an interesting design on this card. I don't know if the power level is especially high. Might need bigger attacks or higher base stats for this one, but still really, really cool design. Fusing these two, obviously, similar-ish keywords together. Moving on to the Deja Voodoo Doctor. I love the freaking name of this card, and it ties into the effect as well. This one's from Inner Self, 3-mana 3/4 Battlecry. Give a random spell in your hand, twin spell, and of course, that's like Deja Vu, seeing the spell twice, essentially. So is that too powerful? Twin spell's kind of scary. There's a lot of spells like legendary spells and stuff. Duplicating them might just be too good or adding too much consistency. Can kind of influence this one a lot too, because you might only have one spell you really want, or kind of play the other stuff out and then make sure you're hitting the right target. It seems like there could be some balance problems there for me, but it's like the flavor of this one, the name, the feel of it. It does so many great things from a design standpoint. We can kind of sort out the balance later. I think this really delivers on the twin spell mechanic from a name standpoint, although, of course, maybe a little broken. Moving on to this card, I love it from Lycan Shadow. It's Frantic Search, bringing back Echo this time around. So you play this, you get a temporary copy in your hand. It's 1 mana, and it draws a card, and then it shuffles a Frantic Search into your deck. So there are some sort of tradable vibes here, but from a flavor standpoint, this is exactly what it feels like when you're frantically searching for a card in your deck. And in real life, rummaging through books and papers and looking for that one thing that you really, really need to find. It feels like stuff just gets out of control and you just keep finding more things that aren't what you're looking for. And with Frantic Search, that's what's going to happen because you're shuffling these into your deck. If you go crazy and you cycle this Echo 4 or 5 times, you're just more and more likely to find other Frantic Searches instead of the card that you need. Now, if you're looking for a specific thing, this may not be the best way to get to it because of that recursive looping problem of all the extra Frantic Searches. But, if you need to play a bunch of cards, if you have discount stuff, if you need to activate like an Edwin and buff it a bunch, there's a lot of cool ways for a card like this to have additional synergies and upsides on top of what it does at a base level. So I don't know exactly how this one would be used. I'm pretty sure there'd be some way to break it with cost reductions or something else, but it just really, really delivers on a flavor standpoint. And it also feels like a surprisingly perfect fit for both Rogue and Echo. So I really, really love this card, although I'm sure you're going to tell me why it's broken, and I'll be very sad. Moving on here to Gelbin the Fallen from Faroon. This one's interesting because it's not actually a keyword that's been brought back, but I let it slide because it's a prominent mechanic from the Grand Tournament that was Joust, where you would reveal a minion in each opponent's deck, and the one that cost more, you'd get sort of a reward if yours was higher cost, right? So Gelbin the Fallen here is a Demon Hunter version of Joust, a 9-mana 1/1. Battlecry, reveal a minion in each deck 3 times. If yours costs more, destroy the loser and gain its stats. Destroy the loser, man. Thank God this wasn't around when I was in high school. I would be destroyed. But I like this a lot, right? Because it does a couple things. It's this like cool big scaling threat, right? If you kill your opponent's 8/8 3 times, this guy's going to be a 25/25, right? That alone is insanely cool and super sick. Beyond that, this is a like ticketed style card that actually has an opportunity to destroy things in your opponent's deck. So you might be destroying like key minions, win conditions, Sniper Il'gynoth, whatever, to create sort of a pseudo win condition there. And this also kind of plays into big Demon Hunter stuff too, which I love, because you want to have big minions to win the jousts. Essentially, you need big stuff to make sure that you're winning. So all in all, delivers on a few different promises here that I think, you know, is cool. It feels like the kind of thing Joust needed to be, a much bigger, grander, almost game-winning sort of effect. Whereas most of the Joust cards back in the day were just garbage, throwaway things that didn't really impact the game at all. So fitting into Big Demon Hunter is perfect as well. I think this card, home run. All right, before we move on, let's talk about our sponsor for this video. It's Keeps. Yeah, if you didn't know, 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35. I'm literally 3 months away from that date. So this is always top of mind for me. And it's important to note that you want to prevent hair loss, so you got to do something while you still have hair left. With Keeps, you can get treated right from home. You don't have to visit a doctor's office. You can talk to one online. They'll send the medication right to your house, making it super easy. So if you're noticing that you're losing your hair, you can do something about it for a limited time. Go to keeps.com/Regis or click that link down there in the description for 50% off your first order. So moving on here to Irwin Stevens, of course, a reference to Steve Irwin, beloved late animal dude. And this one's from Nutter666, a 4-mana 4/5/4 hunter. And it reads, whenever you play a beast, adapt it, then gain the same adaptation. So bringing back adapt here, I love it. And if you get some small beasts in hand, think things like rats, for instance, even rats that have already been buffed a bunch. This could create a really surprisingly cool board with all the different adapt upsides that you might get, some health buffs, some stealth, some wind furies, whatever it is. That's cool. And this guy becomes like a monster in and of himself too, right? Play this with 4 or 5 beasts. This guy's going to be nuts. He's basically kind of like a Galvadon all on his own, because he might get stealth, wind fury, plus attack, etc. if you're playing enough beasts, and you just get this monster board. It takes a big mana commitment, you know, still susceptible to all kinds of different removals, but it's a game-winning board state sometimes, as long as you have those beasts that you're actually able to play. Might be cool if this was summon-based instead of play-based. I don't know if that'd be too busted, because there's a lot of just wide board summons that would be very easy to pull off alongside Irwin Stevens. But I'm cool with it either way, because rats of extraordinary size exists. It can put minions in hand and then support Irwin. On top of other things, you know, if you think about like Hakari the Lynx back in the day, it could be a great way to do this if you're in wild format. So all in all, really, really fun way to play with Adapt, and a fitting here that you've got a reference to Steve Irwin, I think, too. All right, so next up here is this crazy hero card from Just Call Me F. Perhaps I should say from F. It's Maleficent Mana Storm, and it's a spin on spare parts. If you'll remember from Goblins versus Gnomes, little token spells you to get. It reads, Battlecry, this game, your spare parts are replaced by Maleficent's Malefic Mechanisms. And she's got a hero power, Tink, which discovers one of Maleficent's Malefic Mechanisms. And there's a lot of these, and I'll be honest, I haven't even read all these in great detail yet, but there's a lot of cool stuff here, and the effort is clear in this one. Like, went to a lot of trouble to get all these different pieces of art that fit and designed these versions. And I was happy enough just to see Millhouse Mana Bot here, a 1-mana 4/4 that reads, just in case the real one does anything stupid. Like, that alone was enough for me to say this was worth it. Now, you know, some of these look a little busted to me, right? Like Freeze Blaster's kind of a 1-mana Frost Nova. That seems pretty good, right? I mean, Millhouse Mana Bot's 1-mana 4/4. That seems kind of nuts. So, you know, currently, you know, spare parts cards aren't very good. They wouldn't keep up in modern Hearthstone, but they might be too good with the strength of some of these effects. So you'd have to imagine some new spare part enablers coming along to make something like this work. It's also a neutral hero card, which can create all kinds of different problems with cheap spells and shenanigans. So I'll admit I have not, assessed this one very deeply on a power level standpoint. I'm sure some of these feel broken or crazy, but I just wanted to acknowledge the work and the design and the thought that went into this card, because there are definitely some triumphs here in that regard. Moving on to Torn Initiate here from Rob K, a 4-mana Demon Hunter minion with Rush, and it's a 5/1, big trade possibilities. And Battlecry, choose a path. And I love this here. You've got this Initiate Demon Hunter who's trying to figure out their future. This card looks super sick, by the way. I think they went to the trouble to like Photoshop like very subtle images of the two paths here that she's kind of weighing these two. So really high effort here. One is the Path of Discipline, which is gain honorable kill, draw a card. The other is the Path of Hatred, which is gain overkill, shuffle one of your opponent's cards into their deck. So depending on what you need when you play the Torn Initiate, you can pick one of these. If you have an honorable kill lined up, boom, take a card. You're happy. Or alternatively, if you want to disrupt your opponent's hand a little bit, you can take the overkill instead, maybe run this into something smaller and happily take that disruption. But I think this is a cool idea, right? And it, again, plays on honorable kill and overkill and the similarities and dissimilarities there. And it kind of steals from choose one a little bit from Druid, but I'm okay with that. I think it's fine. It doesn't actually say choose one. But from, a flavor, a storytelling standpoint, and a balance of these two keywords, I think this card really delivers. Moving on to Feral Frenzy here from Drunk Dwarf, a 2-mana Druid spell. It's got Echo, and give your hero +2 attack this turn. So I love the idea of Echo with Guff and 20 mana. Suddenly, Echo has a lot more possibilities when you've got 20 mana to work with. Because, for instance, you could use this card 10 times in a single turn. Which means, yes, you could gain 20 attack just off of a single Feral Frenzy. Is that too good? I don't know. There's a lot you can do with 20 mana. I don't even know if 20 attack's the best thing you could do in a lot of cases. But I like it. I think it's really cool. Even without Guff at 10 mana, this is sort of a Pyroblast when you need it. I'm worried, obviously, there are like cost discounts and other ways to like make this crazy and do 1 billion burst damage. But if you look at it kind of straight up, I think it's actually pretty fair, right? Any given mana breakpoint, this sort of lines up okay or even worse than other burst damage options that exist. So, the trade-off there for flexibility and crazy mana upsides, I think it actually feels kind of okay. Again, there's something that's probably going to make this possible to break or cheese, or maybe it's too good for Quest. I don't know. But in an honest world, I think this card does something really cool and would fill a gap and make a pretty compelling case for Echo. And then in that 20-mana Guff world, I think this is a really, really cool way to play off Echo to get extra options and extra versions or extra iterations, I guess I should say, in hand. I think that'd be super, super fun. And then finally here for our last card, we have High Exarch Turalyon. Cooler version of Turalyon than the one we currently have, I'd say. This one comes from Kogeti, and it takes both Inspire and Recruit. Bringing both of those back. He's a 5-mana 5/6 with Divine Shield, so just a big sticky dude. And Inspire, recruit your highest cost minion. So a big Paladin support card here with High Exarch Turalyon. So basically, often for 7 mana, you'd be getting a pretty nice 5-drop, honestly, on top of maybe like a 10-drop, which is probably a little stronger than the average big deck sort of play, like compared to something like Commencement, for instance. I think you'd much rather have this than a Commencement, but this is a legendary, right? And big decks aren't exactly blowing anybody's mind right now, so upping the power level a little bit feels fair. Also, the fact that this is lower cost does have some cool interactions with things like Cavalry Horn right now in Paladin. You probably wouldn't mind pulling this off your Cavalry Horn and then having that spare mana to Inspire immediately, because you're going to get that big thing out of deck. So using the kind of different cost levels, lowest cost, highest cost, converting all those together, I think Turalyon still fits into that build for Paladin. And I like that this has Divine Shield and a pretty reasonably high health total, because it becomes a real dilemma for your opponents. Like, God, I've got to deal with Turalyon, but I've also got this 10-drop thing to deal with. But if I leave Turalyon on board, they're just going to Inspire again. And then from a flavor standpoint, like, Turellian inspiring people into action, inspiring them so much that he's recruiting them out of their deck. Like, I think that delivers a lot too. So pretty clean card here. Power level, perhaps too high, but remember Hearthstone's high power these days. I don't actually think this would be too crazy. I think it'd be just fine. And on top of that, just looks very realistic with, you know, official art here, well-known character, and pretty clean card text, I'd say. This feels like a card that could very much pop into Hearthstone at any point. And there you go. That wraps it up for the custom cards based on old keywords and I guess effects in some cases, like here with Gelbin the Fallen. I am curious what you guys think about these. Are they too strong, too weak? Do they actually utilize these keywords in some cool ways? I think so. I liked these. I thought they were pretty nice. So thank you everybody for submitting cards as always. For your next submissions, I want you to take a Battleground buddy, so the art and the name of the buddy, and redesign it for standard format or constructed Hearthstone anyway, not Battlegrounds. So take some inspiration from its effect that might like transfer over to constructed, or just some inspiration from its art or name. It doesn't have to be the same as it is in Battlegrounds or even all that similar, as long as it makes sense, it's coherent. I think that's cool, and that's what I want to see. So take a Battlegrounds buddy and convert it over to constructed. There's a link down in the description to submit your cards there. Also, I'd like to thank our sponsor for this video, once again, Keeps. Check that link in the description too. That said, thanks much as always for watching, and until next time, game on.